It's not objective. Science is more complex than it was in the past, but the fact that there are physical explanations for the world out there, for the scenery, is nothing new. It goes back to the ancient Greeks and even beyond. The complexity of scientific explanations doesn't affect the fundamental argument about what the scenery might or might not mean. But if we reach for secular explanations, that is because of a certain way our souls nowadays are operating. A modern cast of the consciousness that is at ease with and is often egotistically gratified by a cynical and a superficial explanation, something that is deeply rooted in popular culture, in modern culture. We are allergic to an explanation that seems to reach deeper into the reality of things and deeper into our souls. Ego is the greatest veil, now as in the past. So before we can begin to make sense of the dunya that is out there, flying in through the window and soon to fly out through the other window and looking around and seeing what on earth is going on where we are, we have to know ourselves. We have to have a basic wisdom, otherwise we will not know how to process the information that is coming to us, and we will process it on the basis of ego, or anger, or cynicism, or pessimism, or whatever our prevalent state is. And the modern skepticism about spiritual realities is based on ego. It's not based on what the human being really, truly, and we can say objectively, intuits from the evidence of the miracle, the incomparable, painful mystery or paradox of there being anything at all, the bigger paradox of there being anything, any consciousness that can perceive that anything at all. So we're in an age of deep bias, not an age of science as an explanation, but an age of human spiritual weakness that follows the idea that science might be a sufficient explanation. It isn't. Science just details the way matter works. It doesn't purport to be anything else. It doesn't purport to tell you about meaning, whether there is a meaning or if there isn't a meaning. How you might interpret the facts of matter. It's made no progress at all in that. It is still just the interpretation and the manipulation of matter. So we need to set our souls right so that we can connect the evidence of our senses, the fire-lit hall into which we have flown, with our higher, deeper, more human capacities. And that involves what we might call a new kind of cynicism. The modern world likes cynicism. Almost all modern humour, modern entertainment is about being cynical and sceptical. We like to laugh at others. Sometimes, to our credit, we like to laugh at ourselves. Anything that is to do with dignity, beauty, ancientness tends to be the object of our mockery. But we need to overcome that. Once we've overcome that, then perhaps we can start to open our eyes and see what is really going on. So the task is the elemental task. You could say that the beginning of wisdom is self-knowledge, and above the entrance of the oracle at Delphi there was precisely the ancient Greek aphorism, know thyself. Every culture begins with that, except our culture. That's not what they tell you when you matriculate at the University of Cambridge. There's nobody there in the college establishment whose job it is to tell you how to know yourself. There might be people who are good at helping you to deal with some of the wilder consequences of not knowing yourself properly, counsellors and others, but there is not that essential advice on who are you, what are you, how do you understand yourself. Basically you're left to your own devices. However, the reminders are still there. The signposts have not been turned into the wrong direction. They've been analysed endlessly by the scientists, but the scientists have not changed the signposts, and in a way they have proliferated them. There are more signposts than ever before in the microscopic world, in the world seen by the Hubble Space Telescope. Dunya, Malakutu Samawati wal Ard, turns out to be really, really impressive. Much more so than was imagined by the ancient Greeks or the ancient Arabs or the ancient Indians. Dunya is gigantic, and subhanallah, ma tara fi khalqi rahmani min tafawut. You don't see any imbalance or lack of consistency in the creation of the All-Merciful turns out to be a staggeringly impressive, indeed fine-tuned system. But meaning is something else. So where do we go if we're in a culture that tells us so many details but doesn't give us this basic key on how to interpret those details? Know thyself is something that your college tutor generally won't tell you, and if you look at his own life, probably he's not really thought about it very much himself. That's, in a sense, the meaning of jahiliyyah. The turbulent overmastery of the ego is the consequence of not knowing what the ego is, and that's precisely the state of jahiliyyah. So what we need is a kind of cynicism. We need to look with a jaundiced eye on the basic pedagogic philosophy of this culture that gives us so many little bits and pieces, but does not give us the master signifier, that does not give us the ability to see beyond the picture generated by the totality of the pieces and to see what on earth might be going on. And as a result, everybody is stressed out. Everybody is agitated, because however distracted we may be by the increasingly interesting and distracting entertainment industry, we can't quite get away from that fundamental sense of panic and amazement and incredulity that this thing is here at all. The idea that it might be here but there is no particular explanation is one that gives us extreme pain and extreme agitation. And the modern condition is about agitation. Look at its art, look at its serious music, look at its serious poetry. It's about fragmentation, agitation and pain. Whether it's art or not is a matter of taste, but often it very brilliantly expresses that sense of pain. We know so much about the surface, but we know less than any earlier generation has ever done about what's beyond the surface, if any. It's a world of hiss and no ma'na. And actually we'd rather know a little bit about the form and know what it means than know this endless encyclopedic amount of knowledge about the form, but not have the slightest clue as to whether or not it might mean anything, or come from anywhere, or be going anywhere in particular. The modern condition is a state of suffering, of alienation, deep-seated alienation from meaning, and from, therefore, the nature of the human condition, because human beings have always lived with meaning. There has always been an initiation of young people into the mysteries of the tribe. There has always been an initiation into the mysteries of religion. Every human culture has always had that. Why? Because we crave that. We crave knowledge of the mysteries, we crave access to the master signifier. Otherwise, everything out there, whether it be the rainforest with the scary animals in it, or the traffic on King's Parade, or just the fact of being, is too painful really to contemplate. And hence we can never have moments of stillness, because it's all too worrying. Let's turn on something, let's be distracted by some other time-wasting entertainment, because it's just a drag to be here and not have a clue where it's going, what it's all about. But the natural state of the human being, which is a percipient state, because one thing we know about ourselves is that we do perceive things, and not just form but also meaning. Unlike anything else in creation, we can conceive of abstractions. We can derive conclusions from evidence that is around us. We have a capacity to look at the painfully diverse fact of being, what the philosopher Heidegger called our Gelassenheit, or our thrownness, the fact that it's just there, the existential pain of there being something at all. And we have the ability to look into it and to look beyond it, which is where religion begins. And I mean here real religion rather than just the religion that is something inherited, something you do not to feel bad about yourself, something you do in order to feel superior to others. I mean real religion, which is about self-knowledge and the journey within.